This is a follow-up video to the one about the Celtic, Carthaginians, Phoenicians, Britons, Italians, Europeans in general. Doesn't matter whether you're ancient German, any of the Gallic cultures, although when you understand what a Galatian is, and you understand all that scriptural stuff and the nonsense surrounding it and how it's a 100% false historical narrative, even the idea of Celtic or Gallic, all of that, it's all a construct in itself. But I had mentioned the odds whether when two languages share 3 words, 6 words, and 8 words, and how after 8 you know with mathematical certainty that they come from the same parent language or they were introduced by the same source. I'm going to go over 30 words in Celtic, Sanskrit, Roman, and English in that order. And I'm just going to read them to support this and to support the ideas that I'm putting out there, so you know how serious this is and what it means for our history as Europeans. And if you find value in this, make sure you like the video, share it, subscribe, and support the work in the links below. One more time. We're going to go Celtic, Sanskrit, Roman, and English. So you have Dia, Deva, Deus, God. Aran, Aram, Aratum, cultivated land. Mater, Matara, Mater, a mother. Frater, Fratara, Frater, a brother. Faed, Vadi, Vatis, a prophet or a seer. That's where Vatican comes from. Ter, Tir, which is the Celtic, so it could be Ter or Tir. Dara, Terra, and that's land. Uim, Bumi, Humis, ground. Sakar, Sakaradas, Saceros, a priest. Doras, Dvara, Foris, a door. Focal, Vac, Vox, or vocales. That's a word or a vowel, but vox is also voice. Mautad, Mata, Madidus, that's wet or drunk. Maidne, Maha, Magnus, great. Jane, Janu, Jenu, the knee. Mis, Mas, Mensis, a month. Riog, Raja, Rex, a king. Naui, Nav, Navis, a ship. Clade, Clara, Clades, a calamity. Di, Divos, Dies, a day. Son, Svarna, Sonus, a sound. Stade, Stan, Statio, a station. Beam, Beam, Timur, fear. Pian, Parna, Pena, a pen. Meadan, Madhya, medium, the middle. Rot, Rata, Rota, a wheel. Fem, Femen, that would be the Irish. Vamini, Femina, a woman. Fair, fear, that would be the Irish. Fir, vir, and vir. The Sanskrit and the Roman are exactly the same with that, and that's the word for a man. Fala, vala, valor, strength. Read, rai, res, a thing. Main, mana, mains, the mind. Nuada, naba, novus, new. Stabul, stir, stabilis, stable. Ruada, rudir, ruber, red. Loc, loca, locus, a place. This one just is in the Celtic and Sanskrit. It's the word for a brow, which is the exact same word, which is biru. Luded, lubeda, lubido, that's lust. Tu, tvau, tu, which is an archaic word for thou in English. Cialis Cilum, heaven. Sanscribete, Sanscrita, Sanctum Scriptum, and that means holy writ. So you'll see Sanskrit is a holy language. That's why it was made perfect and it hasn't been corrupted. It's one of the only ones, in addition to the Irish Agam, that was not perverted by common use and carelessness. Now let's look at 1 through 10. Aon ek unios. 1. Da, dva, duo. 2. Traia, tres. 3. Ketar, katur, quatuor. 4. Coig, pancha, quinque. 5. Shekde, sap, no, that's not right. Shaked. Shaked. Sapta, septum. 7. Okid, ashta, octo. 8. Noi nova novum. 9. Daich, dasha, decim. 10. They are literally, mathematically impossible to not be from the same language. And what you see is, I'm not saying it's the same people. I'm saying what you see is very similar to how, through commerce and conquest, say like the English Empire, for example, the British Empire, we all speak English. If you understand me, you speak English, even if you're not genetically tied to Britannia, because it's the most powerful empire. And what was Britain? A maritime empire. So they were able to go all over the world, and if you wanted to do business with them, you need to learn their language. And if you resisted them, they conquered you. And so you see this in the ancient world as well. I'm piecing it together. It's very cloudy, really difficult to make claims. So I probably won't make so many claims, even though I have my suspicions in the actual book, just because I don't want to lead people astray with my speculation. That being said, there are things you can look at and observe and see it for yourself, and it's undeniable. It looks like the majority of history we can pretty much leave by the wayside. However, what fills that? And if we're just going to fill it with fantasy and all this other nonsense that you see in a lot of these online spaces, that's not gonna, it's gonna be even more destructive. So I walk a fine line with trying to show you it's fake, but at the same time I still have to talk in these constructs as though they're real, so that you know who I'm talking about. If I say Chem, most people are not going to know what I'm talking about. If I say Egypt, most people are going to know what I'm talking about. Therefore, I have to refer to Egypt, the fake construct that never existed. That place was never called Egypt. Just like Israel was never a historical location. It's the old name, the Phoenician old name for the sun, right? Israel, Kronos. That being said, if I were to say, you know, Sur, are you even going to know what part of the world I'm talking about? So there's a lot of difficulty because everything we know to be true is taken from an allegorical story that was never meant to be historical. And they've absolutely inverted it. And now the majority of people, dare I say all people, myself included, we can't shake the fantasy-based reality that they've created for us. And we get through one layer only to run into another layer. And this is what happens when you base cultures and history off of mythology. And so if we're gonna ever get to a point of freedom and the cessation of war, we have to get real with all of these lies and expose them. And it might end up, you know, kind of lonely feeling as a culture when we can throw it all in the waste bin and say this is all nonsense. But from that, those who, you know, like by restarting, by getting rid of all what's untrue, we can get out of this wilderness of mirrors that most people haven't done enough work to even realize that they're in a wilderness of mirrors. They still think everything is, you know, somewhat accurate in the way they have been taught, and that's just not the case. But if you see value in this, definitely dive into my SpiritWhirled series. It's not going to get out there without your support, as I'm censored on all of my platforms. I'm becoming a little bit more active on YouTube just because I don't get the feeling that I'm as censored, even though, you know, my comments don't show up half the time. So something is censored on YouTube, but it's not as bad as other platforms. But I'll leave it to you, and as soon as I get another good video or inspiration for a video, I'll be back. All right, have a good night.